I'm here again with Laure Jackson. Hello, Anne.
Hello, great to be here.
Laure Jackson is a sensory specialist occupational therapist who lives on the island of Jersey, which
I
is
know.
awesome.
Isn't it a lovely thing? Except when you have to travel to see real people. I love online because it's wonderful to be, I can enjoy the island and do lots of Zoom and Teams and everything else. But yeah, it's been a bit of a bumpy ride with all the flight cancellations and train cancellations that I have dealt with in the last couple of weeks, but I'm here.
You're
So.
here via Zoom, which is great. And I just thought it might be relevant just to touch on this because on Jersey, you're actually, you've got a centre, which I don't know, this really excited me when you first said maybe, and then it was, oh, we are. It was just, what a superbly exciting thing. So just give us a quick overview, especially if someone's on Jersey. What is this centre all about?
Oh, it is amazing the way that it's happened, and I have such a strong desire. In fact, in my little flyer, I have like such like an actual passion for supporting and helping and equipping families in particular. And on the island here, it may be where you live as well. There are not that many places where you can go as a family and enjoy the time as a family. It's not as if the children head off one way and you head off the other. It's a space. It's one space where you can come together and it's quiet. There is only enough room for one family or a friend. You can bring a friend or maybe two if you know the people, but nobody else is going to book that hour for you. It's just purely for you and whoever else you would like to bring with you. And it's full of all my sensory stuff. So lots of swings and bouncers and rockers, fine motor things. Yeah, it's just a lovely space for people to come and enjoy, and also 24/7. So that if you've got a child at 11 o'clock at night is not settling and you're really concerned about the neighbours, then it's just like come down to the centre, let them run off steam, fill up their senses, get their sensory tank filled lovely so that they can then settle for night. Or if they're up at 5 o'clock in the morning, that's what one of the other parents said. He said, brilliant, I'm coming, because then I can book in the early hours of the morning and
Um,
just come on and use it then.
it's such a good idea. And where else do you go? I mean, you can go to the play park 5 o'clock in the morning. You might get the police saying, "What are you here for?" 11 o'clock at night, same sort of thing. But where do you go if your family just needs a bit of quiet because somebody's struggling? Perhaps they're oversensitive, so they need some more quiet space. That's an opportunity. Or if they need some louder space, then that's okay. And that's the point, I guess, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is totally. And what's lovely, there's an unloading bay just outside, and it's always available through the night from 6 o'clock, 3 till 5 the next morning. So it's great for all of those, especially after hours type activities. But of course, it's there and free to be used, and free to be used by schools, organisations, anybody else who would value an extra space. Or some of those midway children, they're not quite settling in school, but they are, and they're not quite at home, but they're in some of these halfway house, and then those halfway houses can use it too.
Mm. It's great. Right, let's move on to we can do some questions before we dive into the next sensory thing. Pull these up, and I've just lost them. There we go. Right, so let me try and move it so I can see you as well. That's better. Right. Okay, so we've got a question here, which I can't actually read. No, 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 don't close. It's great, and it really technologically able here. Right, I have a question for Laure Jackson. What kind of sensory input do you get from playing with balloons?
What is?
What sort of sensory input do you get playing with balloons?
Oh, balloons.
Yeah.
I thought this was a new something that I didn't know what it was. What a balloon is. Okay. Oh, I really like balloons. Oh, but they're very light. Okay. We have both pros and cons of balloons and different ways to use them. Okay, so let's address the question directly. What sensory input? There is that visual. We have to watch the auditory, because if they pop, goodness me, we all know what that's like. You can use balloons in different ways because, of course, you can half inflate a balloon. So proprioception is brilliant for blowing. We get lots of oral motor input if we are blowing. So the concept of blowing is great. If you don't tie it up at that point, you get wonderful auditory and visual input as you let go of the balloon, and it goes wherever. It's totally erratic. That would be really overstimulating for some people, but incredibly pleasurable for others. So there's the blowing of the balloon. You've got to pull it and stretch it to begin with. So you're using your proprioceptors and your tactile sense. And then you let go of the balloon, or you decide to hold on to it, and then you try and tie it up. So goodness me, are we really using our tactile proprioceptive senses there to try and motor plan and organize how on earth to do up this balloon? You've got to hold it tight and you've got to wrap it tightly around your finger. Lots of deep touch pressure, but lots of coordination at the same time. Then we get to play with it. So it's a question of whether you choose to bat it with an actual bat, because you can do that obviously, or you use that hand-eye coordination, so vision, proprioception, tactile, to actually bat it and to motor plan, to organize your body to get it in the right place. And then what I love most about balloons is that they are fairly slow moving, so that it's much easier for those who are slower at their processing and integrating all their senses together, that you can actually be successful. You can actually catch a balloon because it is slower as it moves through the air. You don't get as much feedback because it's fairly light, but at least most people are able to coordinate enough to be able to throw and then to catch a balloon, because other balloons and other balls, or other balls, are just too fast. And they can't, what we call feed forward and feedback. Their brain can't put all of this information from all their senses together in order to be successful to catch or to bat a ball, but they can when they're doing it with a balloon. So,
Yeah.
I'm not sure if that was quite the answer you were looking for, but there's my take on balloon play.
No, it's good. If I see a balloon, I just want to pick it up and bat it to somebody, because it's just it makes me smile, and smiling is good.
It's a lovely thing. Smell can get people though, depending on how plasticky and rubbery it feels. But it's a lovely thing, and it is quite satisfying, that proprioceptive input, that feedback to our bodies, and you get that little auditory boom as you hit it too.
I think of balloons and I can taste them. They're like a powder, isn't there? On some of them, it can be quite. It's like trying to get it off your tongue, but they can be very powdery sometimes. I'm not quite sure what the powder is used for. I mean, they're not going to get wet or dry, so I don't quite understand them.
Plastic on sticking, yeah.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah,
I could taste it.
Yeah, if you're trying to blow them up with your mouth, Ron. Yeah. Well.
And don't blow it if you're going to pass out. Seek help at that point, please.
Mm-hmm.
Right. This is from me. Does wearing a blindfold make tea taste stronger? We did a blind taste test challenge, which we do live on Facebook every week. And I wondered, this is me talking, how much wearing a blindfold might affect the taste. As in, is it going to dictate stronger taste, or is it that we can just taste more sensitively?
And what did you conclude? You have done an experiment here, so I'm curious.
Yeah, so what we do is I get a proper blindfold. So I see nothing. Peter's really good. He tries to find the same size mugs and cups if he can, so I can't tell from the outside it's different. And so we had some cheap supermarket branded tea. We had a posh tea from a branded tea, and then we had another branded tea that I've never really normally tasted. All decaffeinated, because we just try to choose the same. It's the middle of the day. Me and caffeine of an afternoon and evening would be, I'll be awake till 4 o'clock. So we did it. And what struck me was he did it wrong the first time, because he put the tea bag and took it out. And the cheapest one tasted best. But when you actually follow the instructions, and it's like 2-3 minutes of brewing and you take the tea bag out, actually the one I've never had before was really lovely. And I'm not going to mention the brand, but I discovered that the supermarket tea was a lot more bitter tasting and a lot less pleasant.
There you go. It's always good to do a taste test. But I think going back to actually your question, now I'm curious as to now that you told me your side of it. I think what it really does when you remove a sense is enable your brain to pay more attention to it. So I don't think you're any more aware, I don't think you register it anymore. Just your brain is able to pay more attention to it. So yeah, it doesn't heighten things. There's just less things getting in the way, so that you can pay more attention to it.
I am loving these. Last week we did water. So we took tap water just plain common garden tap water, and we took some filtered water, just a normal water filter you can buy in a supermarket, put water through that, and we tasted the difference. And
Mm.
I was quite shocked how strong and pungent a smell there is here in the northeast of the UK anyway, for the tap water. It's got a very strong, almost chlorine bleachy smell to it, which I have never, I'm nearly 50, I've never before considered.
Mm. And
Which
if you,
is
yeah, it just if you know that you only have the tap water to drink, then probably don't do that. If you're managing fine with it at the moment, because you will sensitize your brain to these things, and that's always the downside of raising awareness about sensory processing issues. But most of the time, it's a really positive thing for sure, and it helps people when people are learning to live with so many things in their life. When you start to become aware of it, you can change even the smallest things to make life easier, to make life less stressful, to help you be more calm, coordinated, and confident. So actually, maybe I'm just going to backtrack there and say, well, actually, it might be a good idea for you to actually do the taste test, because if you switch to bottled water, you might find that all those little sensory events during the day feed really positively into your life if you struggle going off to sleep, or if you struggle in certain areas. Tiny little changes all throughout the day, all together make a massive impact.
we do it because we get limescale, and if you don't filter the water, the kettle just gets really badly filled up with limescale. So it was very much a practical, functional thing. But I thought about water. It's one of the most simple things, and the filtered water, it's nothing particularly fancy or clever. It's just a basic water filter, and yet it smelt of nothing, which is what I assume water should smell of, nothing. And yet the tap water very much felt like a chemically altered thing, which, well, I was quite surprised. I've never known it before, never thought about it before.
And it was interesting when I was just away with my son, when we came back to Jersey, he said, "Oh, I really like this water." It was kind of like coming home to the basic water that we have over here. This is nice.
It's interesting stuff. Right, one more question for you. Whenever I bite into a meringue or a meringue nest or food of a similar texture, so meringues would be eggs and sugar baked in an oven. When I eat that, it makes me shiver. Why?
Hmm.
So meringue nests and similar textured food, sort of powdery stuff.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting. All of us are, the way that we process stuff just affects us so different, because obviously there are lots of people who do that and it doesn't affect them at all. The shivering, it's that nervous system response of something that they're not so sure how to process, or that they don't like it, or otherwise. Can't say for sure exactly what is going on, but it obviously is a reaction within the nervous system to that.
My initial thought was, well, meringues are pretty much lots of sugar. Is it a sugar rush? But I don't know if that's the same thing as feeling a shivering sensation, which is more associated with temperature differentiation.
It's more like that. I would put it more down to the tactile. It could be a sugar thing, that wouldn't be my area, but the actual texture of the meringue could cause a neurophysiological response.
I'll just move that question into my Ask Dr. Richard Scott GP questions. Um,
Good.
because yeah. Anyway, right, let's move on. If you've got questions for Laure Jackson, we would love to have them. You can email me here, hello@pure247radio.org, hello@pure247radio.org. Now, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sessions behind us looking at the senses. So we have done hearing, audio processing, sight, visual processing, smell, which is the
Oh,
olfactory.
yes.
There we are. I was trying to think oak. No, that's wrong. Olfactory. We've had touch, which is tactile processing. No,
Mhm.
no, that's not. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
That's one thing in processing after everything that I can't be too far wrong. And then we've had taste, which is taste processing. And then
Otherwise known as
uh,
gustatory.
gustatory. And then last time we looked at the vestibular system. Now, those first 5 senses you probably heard of. I learnt them in junior school. Those are the 5 senses. But there are more, which is exciting. And we've been working through these one by one with the expertise of Laure Jackson on all these different senses, how they affect us, how we can engage with the world around us better if we're not having such a great time through either over-processing or under-processing. And this week is week 7 of our little series. So what is it we're looking at this week?
We are looking at proprioception.
Right. How do you spell that?
P-R-O,
Yeah.
P-R-I-O,
Yeah.
P-E-P,
Yeah.
C-I-O-N.
Proprioception.
Proprioception. Yeah.
Cool. Talk us about proprioception then.
Love it. It is such an organizing. It is one of the most brilliant senses that you can't really go wrong with. That's why it's one of our safest senses, because what it does, if somebody's particularly stressed and over aroused and neurophysiologically, it is a great sense for bringing people down to calmness. If they're drowsy, they're not registering, they're not paying attention, they're very slouchy, it's a great one to bring people up in their arousal level so that they're much more able to function. The information comes from the receptors inside all of our muscles, all of our joints, tendons, just loads of receptors on the insides of our body, mainly to do with those muscles and joints. So we have muscles in our eyes. So in order to be able to follow objects or to catch that balloon that we were talking about earlier, to be able to follow it, there's the eye muscles around the eye that pull your eyes in different directions. We have loads of muscles around our mouth so that we can smile and communicate visually and non-verbally. We can talk because we have the tongue that is a muscle, and again, all of the lips, all the muscles on the inside underneath the skin are there to help you with speech clarity and to chew, to eat. Some people grind their teeth to kind of help with that regulation. Then we have coordination. All the tiny little muscles in our hands. We've got big muscles for strength that down our back, our glutes, our legs, our feet. All of those muscles are playing in to telling our brain, this is where I am, this is how coordinated I am, and this is how good I feel. So it's a brilliant one for just bringing people into a good middle band of regulation, but also then really feeding into how coordinated they are. So really, it's a great one for sensory health because it impacts that calm, content, coordinated and confident approach, which is my version of sensory health, or how I've coined it, to really make sure people are as rounded holistically as possible with good sensory integration.
I would imagine then that one of the jobs of the proprioception is that you don't over lift something. For example, if you're going to lift a heavy weight, you're going to feel pain at some point because your muscles are saying, nope, not doing this. And if you're going to try and override that, it's going to be painful. So that, I'm guessing, is then feeding back to your brain saying, this is too heavy for us to lift.
Yeah. Yep. That's one thing, and that would join with other receptors. When you get a deeper intensity, it's more the intensity of anything that causes that pain. So it is, and that's where when children are floppy or they're bumping into things or they're uncoordinated or handwriting is such an issue, we actually need to feed into those muscles well, so that they then, in the right intensity, the right frequency, the right duration. So how long and when we do things for, what kind of activities we do, we have to pick those really carefully. Otherwise, we will get those responses like you're talking about, that actually the brain doesn't like it, or it's painful, or I won't do it. And that we never want to get to the point where what we are doing causes us to backtrack rather than go forward in what is good for us.
I love how all these senses feed into us. I mean, we've looked at how what we can hear affects all sorts of things. A smell, which is so especially evocative of helping us to remember occasion and events in our life, through to taste, which more of us are more familiar with. Obviously, that degrades over time. And then we're looking at these two extra sets of two senses. You've got the vestibular and you've got proprioception. But all these things, if one of them is not working very well, is going to then create issues elsewhere. So trying to get everything to work, I suppose, in unity with one another. One thing's going to go one way or another. If you're going to taste something, then you need to know you're not going to squish your jaw too far. If you're going to chew a bone, then your brain needs a reaction to say stop biting. So all this stuff then feeds in. So it's not just what you stick in your mouth and chew and can taste salt or sugar or whatever's in there, but actually even the things that go in. I mean, there are foods I can't eat Not because I don't like the taste, but I can't cope with the texture. I feel literally physically sick because of it. So all this stuff feeds in, and that's just taste. How does proprioception go wrong then? How might that present if just the proprioception stuff of a person is out of whack? It's just not working right.
Yeah, there's one tiny area, and it is only tiny, and it's more like that overreactive proprioception that we don't really see very much. Most of the other senses, you can be more sensitive to the sun, to light and to movement. People don't like slides or swings or car sick, those kind of things, and you can be oversensitive to sounds. We don't see It's very rare to have an overreactivity in the proprioceptive sense, but it does happen. And that's when it's like you literally don't want people to be moving your joints. There is that sense of, it's not quite pain, but it technically would define it as painful. We're just uncomfortable in other people moving us, which doesn't have a normal physical reason for that. It literally is just the proprioceptors. And if you have, for people who've had actually a brain injury, you can see proprioception and how proprioception doesn't work if it is damaged, because they have to literally look at everything. So for people who've had actually brain damage in their proprioceptive receptors, then they have to watch, and to be able to walk, they have to look at their legs in order to be able to see, to be able to tell the nerves, this is how we move. So everything that they do, they have to see. If there's anything that they try and do behind their heads, they can't do it, because they have no feedback from their proprioceptors as to where their body is at all. We don't, if it's not a brain injury, we don't normally see it to that extent. But we do have those who will struggle tying a bow behind their back, cleaning themselves if they're on the toilet, doing shoelaces, sitting up with good posture, and that really links in with the vestibular system, lots of clumsiness and really tired handwriting. If they can handwrite at all, they might press too hard on the paper. They break toys because they can't grade. We talk about grading, so that you are pressing putting the right amount of pressure and pressing to the right amount that's required for that task in hand, so that things aren't overly squashed, neither are they dropped. So because you don't have that good grading in your muscles to do things. So it impacts absolutely every area of life, from even, from getting up, from getting out of bed, not falling over, to getting dressed, doing teeth, eating, and then everyday activities. It has a massive impact.
I guess we can probably understand that to a degree. If you've had proper full-on flu, then movement can feel painful because I don't understand the physiological bit of why. I don't know, the swellings, or it's beyond my knowledge, but it can feel very uncomfortable to move, and you just want to lie down, close your eyes, and just sleep until it all gets better again. And another one that I think about is if you're learning to type on a keyboard. If you're touch typing a keyboard, then you're going to have extremely good proprioception because you know where the buttons are and you can press them. I know that if I jump from one computer to a next, some of the keyboards are slightly different, and I can type a paragraph and think, what on earth have I just done? And it's because one of the buttons is ever so slightly askew. I've got an ergonomic keyboard which says keys on separate with a gap in the middle. So I jump off that one onto a standard keyboard, and it's just okay. And you have to kind of relearn. And the longer I spend on that particular keyboard and then the next one, it gets better again. So we can kind of understand it from the perspective of we're learning to touch type, for example, rather than looking at a button and pressing it. Actually, it gets better over time because we learn to improve. But of course, if it's not something we can do well at, then touch typing is something that's going to be literally out of our reach.
It's an interesting one between the balance between practicing something or working on the proprioceptors. So this is where lots of our dyspraxic adults and children will often do well if they can sustain the practice. So for you, the touch typing thing, you have the motivation and you have the skills to be able to adapt and move from one to the other. And as you practice it, then it gets better again. For some people, the practicing is just exhausting and it's really not motivating because the progress is really slow. So often, for those that I know that we do have an issue with proprioception, if they want to learn to touch type, if they want to learn to drive, if they want to learn to whatever, then let's work on their proprioceptors, on that muscle and bone integration with the brain in a way that they do enjoy, and then go back to learning that skill or that task afterwards. So, for example, if we were working on the touch typing, and yes, there's motor memory and things we can muscle memory that we can talk about as well. But it's about, let's work on those fine finger activities. How can we push and pull those activities? Push and pull often is synonymous with proprioceptive input. Anything that you can push, heavy muscle work is what we're looking for. Anything that you can push, anything that you can pull, anything that demands a bit more resistance, a bit more intensity, will feed into your proprioceptive system better than just sitting there typing. Moving your fingers is good, but if we give it with a bit of putty, if we actually get the hands squeezing some sponge and wiping the car, doing the windows, doing some gardening, those are the activities that I would focus on, and find ones that are motivating for you to build that proprioceptive integrity, so that you can then, it's then easier to learn a new skill.
When you started describing this one, I was thinking about weighted blankets, but that's not. Is that what we're talking about? A weighted blanket? Is that something different?
That's tactile.
Okay.
There is, if you have, however, if you have a weighted vest, you put something on you that has extra weight, and therefore your muscles have to work. So we often talk about putting a backpack on if children at school, if they just need to settle a little bit more, if they've just had the bus run or the car and they haven't really fed their proprioceptive, their muscle system much at all, then you want them to go walking around the school playground with a backpack on, because it's like a weighted vest. It's weight, extra muscle work. Heavy weighted blankets, though, you are passive. You're normally sitting there. You're not actually doing anything with your muscles, and it's putting weight on you, which is going through your tactile system. So that's more, tiny little nuances. But I put that more in the tactile sphere than proprioception.
I think I am rather ably demonstrating how a little bit of knowledge can be dangerous, because I remembered something about a weighted blanket and I'm thinking, isn't that no? And that's why we have people like you who actually do know what they're talking about, who are trained properly, not just have learned stuff and can regurgitate pieces of it.
I wish everybody knew so much, because I see things. My son tells me I really need to look at social media and do some of those reaction videos. Is that what they call it? I really have to get into this, because actually people are saying things, people are doing things out there, and it's just like, oh my word, no. But, yeah.
I was thinking back to what you said about your son. You came back to Jersey. Oh, the water. And it's a simple thing. We all drink water one way or another. And yet he comes back to home, and there's various things, we can always joke about, oh yes, it's my own toilet and all the rest of it. But actually being able to get a glass of water from the tap, and it tastes, and it's what you're used to, that comfort, that warmth, effectively, metaphorically, I guess, in a sense, it's in cold water, but it sort of envelops us in such a, we're home. We travel quite a bit as a radio station, and there are various roads and journeys and motorway bridges where I just think we're nearly home, and it starts to feel like home. And then there's a couple of roads we come off, it's all like street lights, and as soon as it goes pitch black, I know we're kind of 20 minutes from home, because we drive through the countryside into the middle of nowhere. And I love that. I've come home and it's light everywhere, ambience of a town or city, whereas where we live, there are no streetlights at all, anywhere, which I adore, which means that when we're coming home, it's then we get out of the car, the light from the house comes on, and we've got torches to see what we're doing, and okay, I'm waking up again. But it was just striking me with your son, a glass of water could be life transforming in the simplest of things, because I'm home now. Do you know what I mean?
Beautiful. I love the simplicity when the world is looking for so many. Let's go back to the senses and just enjoy. Take those moments to appreciate the sights, the sounds, the smells, the tastes. That stop. Maybe today, just today, just take the opportunity at some point in the day just to stop and listen to something, or watch something, or smell something, or be in that moment and enjoy, and have a moment of gratitude.
I can't finish anywhere better really than that. take a moment for yourself to consider where you're at. And yeah, gratitude. That's beautiful. Anne Laure Jackson, thank you. If you want to connect with Anne, anything that she's doing, you can engage with her. Help if you're thinking, is this a sensory issue? Whatever is going on, then you can do that. The best way to do that is go to our website, pure247radio.org, pure247radio.org/ALJ for Anne Laure Jackson.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you, Anne. And we'll come back next week for the 8th group of senses.
Let's see if folks can remember what that one is. Yeah.
I don't. Right. We'll be back next week for more. And thank you, Anne Laure Jackson.
Great. See you then.
Rated 5 stars by Sorted Magazine's film critic, Pure 247 takes you behind the scenes of the birth of a global Christian radio station. Andy B will have you laughing and crying as you discover what it takes to create ministry that matters in this inspiring tale of perseverance, honesty, and vulnerability. Buckle up and get ready for a story that's uplifting as it is entertaining. Behind the microphone, they face bankruptcy, eviction, and 2 life-changing surgeries. Can they make it? Will they make it? Get your copy of this life-changing book today. Pure 247 is available now on Amazon. Andy B is best described as a man after God's own heart, who insists that God's vision and resourcing trump all handicaps.